I visited my millionaire daughter just to say hello. But when the door opened, I froze. She didn't expect me to see that. I arrived at the marble-pillared entrance of my daughter's penthouse at precisely 2:37 p.m., the city's high noon glare reflecting off the chrome of my taxi's rearview mirror. My heart was light, just a mother dropping in unannounced to say hello, to see who her little girl had become. I pressed the buzzer, rehearsing my greeting. "Surprise, sweetheart, it's Mom." When the door slid open, I froze. There she stood. Breezy designer coat discarded on a gilt hook, ankle boots planted defiantly against the polished floor-to-ceiling glass, but it wasn't her attire that rooted me in place. Behind her, leaning into the shadows of her living room, was him, the man whose name I hadn't dared speak in 20 years. His arm curled possessively around her waist. His laugh, rich and mocking, drifted out to me, the same laugh I'd last heard when I ran, pack in hand, from the edge of his world. My daughter's eyes narrowed. "You shouldn't be here," she said, voice sharp as a shattered wine glass. "I don't know who told you visitation was open, but I'm busy." Each word rattled down the marble hallway, an unwelcoming arrow aimed straight at my chest. He stepped forward, tall, angular, just as I remembered. His gaze flicked between us, curiosity twisting into something darker. "Mrs. Fletcher," he purred, "didn't expect to see you, did you?" He smiled a grin that grazed evil. My daughter's hand tightened on his jacket lapel, but she still offered me no invitation. I swallowed, every polite instinct deserting me. "Natalie," I whispered, calling her by the name she gave at birth, the name she barely uses anymore. "I came to catch up." She laughed, brittle and abrupt. "That's rich. You haven't called since you packed your bags and left." Her tone scolded me the way I once scolded her for staying out past curfew. If you hadn't bailed on me, I wouldn't have needed him. He took a step closer, too close, like a shark sizing up wounded prey. "Mom," she said, stepping between us and pushing me back with a pale hand. "Don't make this harder than it already is." The foyer lights flared, revealing family portraits hung in a gallery wall, gleaming smiles of my little girl in princess dresses, graduation caps, black tie galas, always alone, never me. A pang twisted my ribs. I realized I wasn't merely an unwelcome guest. I was a specter haunting her meticulously curated life. "Is this who you've chosen?" I met her eyes, daring her to look away. "After everything?" Her cheekbones flared with anger. "Everything?" She spat the word like a bitter pill. "You walked out on me, on my father, on all of us. Your everything ended long ago." I gripped the strap of my purse, knuckles white. My voice trembled on the verge of a sob. "I made mistakes, big ones, but I never stopped loving you." He laughed again, a sound too cruel for daylight. "Some mistakes cost more than apologies," he said, voice silky. He closed the distance between us, shoulder brushing mine. "Maybe this isn't the best time, Mrs. Fletcher." My daughter's gaze darted to him as if waiting for permission. Then her eyes met mine with something I hadn't seen since she was 5, uncertainty, but it evaporated as quickly as dew beneath the sun. She squared her shoulders. "You need to leave," she said, voice cold, "or I'll call security." Before I could respond, the lobby intercom buzzed, a clipped male voice. "Tenant alert. Security to foyer immediately." My pulse thundered. I realized then that I was exactly where I feared, trapped between her anger and his indifference, a mother exiled from her child's empire. I took a shaky step backward, refusing to let panic bloom. "Natalie, please," I pleaded, "just one moment." But she was already turning away, his gloved hand slipping into her hair. The elevator doors clanged behind her, swallowing them both in cool steel shadows. The foyer fell silent except for the faint click of her heels retreating. I stood alone, the intercom's red light pulsing like a heartbeat threatening to stop. In one breath, I'd seen her triumph and her terror. I'd glimpsed my daughter's world, and the man who held her with a claim I never wanted her to know. The door slid shut. My reflection stared back at me, a woman too old for fear, too weary for tears, and I realized this was only the beginning. The truth I feared all my life was standing in that penthouse doorway, and she just slammed it in my face. But as the lobby lights dimmed, I lifted my chin. Some doors closed to protect the heart, others close to force it open again, and I wasn't finished knocking. Cold January air slapped my cheeks the moment the doorman marched me through the revolving doors and onto Fifth Avenue. Taxis screamed, tourists hustled, glittering shop windows flaunted riches that looked smaller now that I knew what towered above them. I gripped the railing beside the stone steps, willing my knees to steady. His face, the same predator-smooth jawline, the scar near the left temple I once mistook for charm, kept replaying in my mind. Marcus Hale. In the 80s, he'd run cons from Harlem to Houston, swapping names the way insects shed skins. When I caught him rifling through my jewelry box the night Natalie was 10, I fled with a suitcase and a prayer. I never imagined he would slither into my daughter's life decades later, wearing a tailored suit and a billionaire's smile. A horn blared. I snapped back, sucked icy breath, and reached for my phone with shaking fingers. There was only one number worth dialing. Catherine "Cat" Monroe, the investigative reporter who had once helped me serve Marcus with a restraining order. We hadn't spoken in 15 years, time enough for forgotten favors to bury themselves. But Cat's first word after hello was a concerned, "Loretta, where are you?" I poured the story into her ear. Natalie's penthouse, Marcus's arm around her waist, the venom in my daughter's eyes. Cat whistled low. He reappears like mold. Let's see if the spores left tracks. She promised to pull recent SEC filings and charity board appointments. When Cat said, "I'm on it," she meant her night would be coffee and public records databases. Hanging up, I noticed a woman in a burgundy coat watching me from the curb. She offered a crisp business card. Serena Whittle, building concierge. Her voice softened. We don't usually escort parents out. Mr. Hale instructed extra security. She hesitated, leaning closer. I'm not supposed to say this, but Ms. Hale, your daughter, looked frightened, not angry. Please don't give up. I tucked the card into my purse, her small rebellion lighting a spark inside me. A gust rattled holiday garlands still strung between lampposts. With nowhere to shelter, I climbed into the first yellow cab and gave the address of a modest hotel in Midtown, the same place I'd saved for during lean years, the kind of hotel where bellmen treat a frayed suitcase like Louis Vuitton. In the tiny room, I sat on the floral bedspread, rereading every text I had sent Natalie in the last decade. Most were one-sided. Birthday blessings that earned only a polite emoji, Christmas invitations declined with tight schedule, and my final plea, 6 months ago, "I'm proud of you. Can we talk?" left unanswered. A tear splashed the phone screen, but anger quickly dried it. If Marcus had sunk hooks into her Fortune 500 world, he wouldn't stop at her heart. He'd bleed her wealth, prestige, maybe worse. And Natalie, for all her brilliance, inherited my blind spot for smooth talkers. The television clicked on by itself, my elbow catching the remote, landing on a cable news finance segment. There, smirking from a podium at a gala the night before, stood Marcus Hale beside a caption, "M. Hale announces Hearts and Capital Philanthropy Fund with tech mogul Natalie Fletcher." My daughter shone under chandelier light, yet something in her smile looked off, tight, practiced. Not the genuine grin she wore when collecting seashells as a girl. I snapped a photo of the TV screen and texted it to Kat, found their public link. 3 dots danced back almost instantly. Good. IRS 990 forms next. Hale's last fund dissolved mid-audit. A knock startled me. I half expected security again, but it was only the night manager offering complimentary tea. Still, dread lingered. Marcus played long games. Intimidation, isolation, exploitation. If he sensed I posed a threat, he'd act before headlines caught up. Natalie's safety clock had started ticking the second he saw me at her door. I opened my purse, fishing out the wrinkled church bulletin I kept as a bookmark. On the back was Reverend Harris's number, my pastor back in Georgia, retired NYPD chaplain. Hesitating only a breath, I dialed. "Reverend," I said when he answered, voice barely holding, "I need guidance and maybe protection." He replied without pause, "Where and when, child?" Midnight sirens wailed down 9th Avenue. I stared at their red taillights shrinking into darkness, newfound resolve coiling tight inside me. Tomorrow I would gather every ally, Kat, Reverend Harris, maybe Serena if courage let her, and step back into that tower not as a trespasser but as a mother demanding the truth, because now I'd seen the monster in my child's house and I knew something else too. He'd seen that I'd seen him. A collision course was set, and I wouldn't let Marcus Hale write the next chapter of Natalie Fletcher's life. This story was mine to finish. The first rays of dawn hadn't cleared the rooftops when Kat Monroe's text buzzed my phone. Hale's so-called fund flagged for offshore transfers. Coffee at 6, bring backbone. Backbone was all I had left. I met her at a corner diner where the neon open sign flickered like a faulty warning light. Kat looked exactly as I remembered, tight curls pulled into a puff, wire rim glasses, a jacket with more concealed pockets than a magician's coat. She slid a folder across the formica. "Hale's philanthropy isn't a 501c3. Yet," she said. Paperwork stalled because he listed a British Virgin Islands trust as beneficiary. Classic wash and rinse. She tapped a printout of wire instructions. "Your daughter's signature guarantees the seed money. 50 million. I gripped my mug to hush the tremor in my fingers. "He sinks her, he swims away." "Unless we burst the raft first," Kat replied. "We need proof Natalie's being manipulated, not complicit." That takes eyes inside. I thought of Serena Whittle, the concierge who'd slipped me her card. Kat's eyebrow arched when I mentioned her. "An insider with camera access beats any warrant," she said, already thumbing a secure messaging app. "Let's see if she'll play whistleblower." The door chimed again. Reverend Harris entered, gray hair haloed by the diner's fluorescent glare. He took my hand, eyes kind but fierce. "I called an old friend at NYPD Financial Crimes," he said quietly. "They'll open a preliminary file the moment we hand them records." Kat smiled. "Perfect. I've got records for days." Plans formed over pancakes. Kat would compile a bulletproof dossier. Reverend Harris would shepherd it to detectives he trusted. My task was hardest. Reach Natalie without alerting Marcus. Serena's help, or lack of it, would decide everything. By 10 a.m., I was back on 5th Avenue, pulse hammering as I entered the marble lobby. Serena greeted me at the desk, expression calm but eyes darting. "He's out," she whispered. "Managers at a breakfast summit, Miss Fletcher's alone." She slid a visitor badge under my palm. "Elevator 3, penthouse 10-minute window." I stepped into the mirrored lift, my reflection trembling beside stainless steel walls. When the doors parted, Natalie stood barefoot in the foyer, a silk robe cinched tight. Her surprise flickered to annoyance, then something softer I couldn't name. "Mom, how did you get past security?" "I asked," I said simply. "And I'm asking now. Talk to me. No cameras, no entourage." She exhaled. exhaustion crumpling her perfect posture. 5 minutes, she said, leading me into a sun-washed study overlooking Central Park. The skyline gleamed, but Natalie's eyes were dulled by shadows. I wasted no time. Marcus Hale is using your money to launder foreign cash, I said, sliding Kat's printouts across a marble desk. If the IRS notices first, you'll stand beside him in court. Her hand flew to her mouth as she scanned the papers. These can't be real. They're public, I answered. He hid them in plain sight. Silence stretched. Outside, sirens wailed several blocks away, distant but rising. Natalie's voice broke it. He promised transparency. He said the trust shielded us from liability. A fragile laugh escaped. He calls it asset armor. I reached for her hand. Armor shouldn't bleed you dry. She hesitated but didn't pull away. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, Marcus's baritone floating ahead of him. Darling, board moved lunch too. He stopped cold at the doorway, eyes narrowing. Security failed twice? Impressive. His smile was razor thin. Natalie stiffened. Marcus, Mom showed me financial filings. She thrust the printouts toward him. He scanned them, expression unreadable, then placed them gently on the desk. Sweetheart, these are misinterpretations. Offshore trusts diversify risk. I stepped between them. Diversify all you want, just not with my daughter as collateral. His gaze chilled. Mrs. Fletcher, meddling could be expensive. Natalie flinched at his tone. Before he could continue, Serena's voice crackled over the intercom. Mr. Hale, Detective Alvarez and 2 officers are here regarding financial crime inquiries. Kat's timing was surgical. Reverend Harris must have delivered the dossier already. Marcus's expression slipped for just a heartbeat, fear, then fury. He straightened his cuffs. Natalie, handle your mother. I'll sort this misunderstanding. He strode out, footsteps clipped, authority leaking at the seams. Natalie sagged into a leather chair. Tears welled but didn't fall. Mom, I don't know what's true anymore. I knelt beside her. Truth stands when everything else falls. Let it stand with you. I placed Serena's spare key card in her hand. If you need me, use this. Sirens grew louder, stopping at the curb far below. For the first time, my daughter didn't look past me but at me, eyes wide, searching for the little bit of home she once trusted. I squeezed her hand, hopeful she found it. Doors slammed somewhere in the building. The real fight, legal, financial, emotional, was just beginning. Yet as officers' voices drifted upward, I knew one thing. Marcus Hale's empire had a fracture, and it started the moment a mother refused to stay silent. Sirens receded as swiftly as they'd arrived, but tension lingered like static in the penthouse air. Natalie pressed a trembling hand to her temple, eyes tracking the elevator indicator numbers as detectives descended with Marcus in custody. The moment the light hit L1, she exhaled. Half relief, half panic. I guided her toward a love seat, pouring water from a crystal pitcher that suddenly felt absurdly ornate. She stared at the glass without drinking. You warned me about men like him when I was a teenager, she whispered. I thought success made me untouchable. Success attracts sharper knives, I answered, but it also funds shields. Footsteps padded lightly. Serena stepped in, cheeks flushed from adrenaline. She closed the door, handed me a thumb drive. Building cameras, she murmured. Everything forensics will need. Deliver it before management buries the footage. I tucked it into my purse. Natalie's gaze flicked to the exchange, realization dawning that strangers were risking careers for her. Kat called. I put her on speaker. Hale's lawyer already pushing bail, she reported. But Financial Crimes Task Force found enough prima facie evidence to freeze the Hearts and Capital accounts. Natalie flinched at the fund's name, now a poison label instead of a philanthropic brand. Kat's voice softened. If Natalie files a cooperating victim statement today, the DA can hold stronger conditions. I'll do it, Natalie said, surprising even herself. Kat gave the address. Serena volunteered to escort her. Less press heat, she said. They left through the service elevator, Serena slipping off her name tag as the doors closed, shedding neutrality for allegiance. Alone, I surveyed the living room. Marcus's fingerprints were everywhere. Bold sculptures, a bar cart stocked with imported whiskeys, art books curated for swagger rather than love. I spotted a half-open leather portfolio on the coffee table, Hale's monogram embossed. Inside, a stack of NDA drafts, each with Natalie's printed name beside a blank signature line. One short dash away from silencing her permanently. My pulse spiked. I snapped photos for Kat. The front door clicked. Reverend Harris stepped in with Detective Alvarez, a middle-aged woman whose polite demeanor cloaked steel. I handed her the portfolio. She thumbed through, eyebrows rising. "Attempted preemptive gag orders," she murmured. "Adds weight to coercion theory." She slid the folder into an evidence bag. "Mrs. Fletcher, your witness statement corroborates Natalie's timeline. If she confirms, Hale's bail fight weakens." Reverend Harris rested a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You ready to testify?" "Been ready for 20 years, I said. Evenings seeped into the city like watercolor. At the precinct, Natalie sat beside me, statement signed. Her fingers interlaced mine, awkward, tentative, but present. Detective Alvarez debriefed us. Hale's bail set high, passports surrendered, accounts frozen. "He still has lawyers and connections," she cautioned, "but sunlight shortens shadows." Kat arrived with takeout noodles, newsroom energy sparking under fluorescent lights. She showed Natalie archived articles, Hale's prior fraud suspicions, partners bankrupted, a fiancé who'd vanished after questioning offshore transfers. Natalie's face tightened with every paragraph. "I thought I'd vetted him," she whispered. "Turns out he vetted me for assets." Kat handed her a press card. "Help me tell it right. You own the narrative now, not Hale." Natalie studied the laminated badge, power reframed. Just after midnight, we returned to the penthouse. The city below shimmered. Above, the rooms felt larger, emptier, like a stage post performance. Natalie gathered gifts Hale had showered on her. Diamond tennis bracelet, vintage camera, limited edition art prints. One by one, she set them in a box labeled Evidence, Donate. At the bottom lay an old photo of us on Coney Island. Cotton candy stains on our cheeks. She traced the faded edges. "I kept this in my nightstand. I was angry, but I still missed you," she admitted. I brushed her hair from her eyes. Nostalgia and sorrow mingling. "I missed every version of you, even the ones I never met." We talked until dawn. She confessed how Hale preyed on her loneliness behind boardroom triumphs. I shared why I'd run years ago, fear disguised as independence. The silence between sentences was heavy but healing. As sunlight painted the skyline peach, Natalie opened the balcony doors. Cool winter breeze rustled curtains, carrying city sounds, buses groaning awake, pigeons disputing crumbs, a world moving on. She stepped outside, inhaled deeply, shoulders relaxing as if dropping a cloak. "Mom," she said, voice firm, "help me audit every line of my empire. I want no hidden traps left." I smiled, tired, but invigorated. "First we hire forensic accountants, then we plant safeguards your success deserves." Behind us, Serena texted, "Building management launching internal review. I quit, starting fresh." Courage begets courage. Natalie turned, determination sparking. And Mom, after audits, maybe a vacation, just us. Seashells again? My throat tightened. Seashells sound perfect. She slipped her arm through mine. Together we watched the city wake, aware storms might still brew in Marcus Hale's legal arsenal, but we would meet them not as stranger and millionaire or runaway and prodigal daughter, but as two women bound by blood, now allies forged in truth. And somewhere, in a holding cell downtown, Marcus Hale faced a dawn without a penthouse view, his empire cracked by a mother's knock he never saw coming. A midnight phone vibration jerked me from the shallow, dream-starved sleep of hotel pillows. Kat's number. Her first words snapped the fog. Hale's legal team just filed a motion to unfreeze one of the dormant accounts. You know, Paladin Vision Holdings. They're claiming Natalie's approval. Natalie was asleep in the next room of our adjoining suites. First real rest since Marcus's arrest. I stepped into the hallway carpeted in hushed florals. She never signed, I whispered. Exactly, Kat said. But the motion includes a PDF that looks eerily like her signature. Unless we shut it down before the morning docket, Hale might slip a few million offshore. My stomach nodded. Forgery, round 2. Meet us at the accounting firm in an hour, I said. By 4:30 a.m., green streetlights cast ghostly halos over Manhattan. Natalie, in sweats and a topknot, slid into the back seat of Kat's car, clutching a folder of verified signatures. If he copied mine, he used my old business card script, she muttered, anger sharpening her exhaustion. It curls differently. The forensic accountants, an unflappable duo named Singh and Martelli, opened their Chelsea office just for us. They projected Hale's PDF onto a wall. Under magnification, the Natalie Fletcher signature wavered. Pixel edges revealed it had been lifted and overlaid. Martelli highlighted the light gray bounding box, a digital scar. Singh printed a side-by-side comparison with Natalie's authenticated signature. Easy to debunk, he said, if the judge sees this before 9 a.m. Kat dialed Ada Alvarez. A sleepy but grateful voice answered. Email the exhibits now. I'll file an emergency objection. We had 23 minutes to deadline. Printers hummed, scanners beeped. Natalie added a sworn declaration. I did not sign or authorize any transaction for Paladin Vision Holdings. Her pen stabbed each word. The moment Kat hit send, a collective breath emptied, but our reprieve was brief. Singh frowned at fresh data streaming across his monitor. Someone's logging in from a London IP, trying to initiate a 4 a.m. wire. He swiveled. If Hale's team has fallback signatories, they might move funds before the court order propagates. Natalie's face hardened. He's using my board CFO, Amelia Gray. She idolized him. Martelli typed a command, freezing login attempts. Temporary stop, but you need board votes rescinding Amelia's transfer rights. Natalie scrolled her contacts. My COO and tech lead are awake on West Coast time. She voice-called both, outlining the emergency with surgical speed. Within 15 minutes, digital signatures formed a board quorum. Singh attached the resolutions to the court packet. ADA Alvarez emailed back, motion to unfreeze denied, further injunction issued. Underneath a note, judge threatens contempt. Natalie's shoulders slumped as adrenaline faded. I wrapped an arm around her. One fire out. Next? Kat tapped her phone. We still have to plug every trust Hale opened. Offshore lawyers don't sleep. The sun finally spilled gold over Hudson rooftops as we pushed through glass doors of Natalie's headquarters, sleek panels etched with her company's Infinity Loop logo. Inside, Employees poured cold brew and scrolled overnight news. Tech heiress cooperates in lover launderer case. Half-whispered sympathies, a few darted glances as if I were the ghost who'd triggered their boss's reckoning. Natalie strode to the executive floor, bypassing her private office. Instead, she entered the central glass conference room and summoned department heads. Screens displayed spreadsheets Singh had built overnight. Every subsidiary, every shared signatory, she spoke without tremor. We rebuild our governance today. New dual-key approvals, external audits, whistleblower hotline, effective immediately. Her VP of Finance asked gently, "What about Miss Gray?" Natalie's jaw tightened. HR will terminate her. Cause: facilitating attempted fraud. I watched pride and sadness battle behind her eyes. Firing a longtime colleague is an amputation that bleeds, but leadership sometimes means wielding the knife yourself. While staff executed her orders, Kat, Reverend Harris, and I slipped into Natalie's office. Mahogany desk, floor-to-ceiling innovation awards. On a side table sat a framed photo, Natalie accepting Entrepreneur of the Year, Marcus beside her. I lifted it, slid the back clasp, removed the picture. Natalie entered moments later. Caught me. "Keep it," she said softly. "I want new memories on these walls." She opened a cabinet, pulled out an older photo, our Coney Island shot I'd saved, and placed it where the award had stood. The empty space around it felt intentional, room for more honest stories. A knock. Sing again. We traced another shell. Zephyr Charitable Futures, Singapore. Hale used a deep fake of Natalie for video calls with bankers. Kat cursed under her breath. This man weaponizes tech. Natalie leaned forward, voice resonant. Then we weaponized transparency. Live stream our cleanup, show every audit step. Kat's eyes lit up. Public narrative armor, I can host it through my network. We set a launch for dusk, reclaiming truth, live. Natalie would reveal Hale's tactics, provide resources for fraud victims, and announce a coalition fund seeded by recovered money. Afternoon bled into evening, studio lights erected in the office lobby. Makeup artist dabbed concealer under Natalie's eyes, but she waved them off. Viewers deserve fatigue. It's honest. Before cameras rolled, she squeezed my hand. "Mom, stay on screen with me." I hesitated, stage fright, tickling old insecurities, but nodded. The red light blinked. Natalie spoke directly to lens and world. I believed success shielded me. It didn't. Predators adapt, so must we. Tonight we expose how financial abusers operate so they can't hide behind loved ones again. She gestured to me. This is my mother. Her courage started this rescue. Let yours start yours. Thousands watched. Chat feed exploding with cheers and confessions. Kat fielded live questions. Singh demonstrated signature forgery detection. Reverend Harris offered crisis hotlines. When the feed ended, applause erupted from staff on balconies above. Natalie sagged into a chair, tears glistening, but for the first time they looked like relief. Outside, Manhattan pulsed neon. Somewhere in a cell, Marcus Hale likely saw the broadcast on a wall-mounted TV, his empire publicly unraveled thread by thread. I looked at Natalie, shoulders squared despite exhaustion, and realized this part of her story no longer needed me to knock. She'd built her own door, opened it wide, and invited others into the light. Midnight found the office lobby littered with cable reels and coffee cups while a handful of exhausted staff rode adrenaline highs. Natalie paced barefoot on the marble, scrolling comments from the live stream. Tens of thousands viewed, hundreds already submitting suspicious documents. Each ping was proof that truth had velocity. Kat collapsed into a swivel chair, rubbing her temples. Local station wants you at dawn, but bigger. BBC requests satellite interview. Natalie blinked. The story's global. Kat grinned. Fraud is global, so is vindication. Before we could celebrate, Detective Alvarez entered, jacket still dusted with the day's chaos. Hale's counsel pushed emergency bail hearing for 9 a.m., she said. They're arguing health concerns. Natalie stiffened. If he walks out, he'll board a jet. Alvarez raised a hand. We're filing a flight risk affidavit, but stronger voices help. Board members, investors, victims, the judge weighs community impact. Kat's eyes lit. Public statements. She pointed to the live stream set. We filmed them here, now. Natalie hailed her CTO, legal counsel, and a janitor who'd moved to the U.S. after losing savings to a similar scheme. One by one, beneath smartphone lights, they recorded 60-second testimonies. How Hale duped them, how freezing his assets protects thousands. Alvarez uploaded clips to the DA's file at 2 a.m. Serena arrived carrying manila envelopes, printed visitor logs showing Hale's late-night meetings with Gray and unidentified guests. Singh scanned them into the evidence cloud. Alvarez whistled. Conspiracy just got easier to prove. Exhaustion tugged, but the momentum felt sacred. Reverend Harris led a quiet prayer in the boardroom. The atheist designers joined, heads bowed out of reverence for the moment rather than creed. When he finished, Natalie exhaled like air escaping a years-long pressure chamber. Mom, you need rest, she said, steering me toward a corner office. Now serving as a nap room, I touched her cheek. So do you. She smiled, bruised but bright. Soon. Dawn spilled honey pink over skyscraper crowns as we filed into the courthouse. Protesters and reporters clustered, some cheering Natalie's name, others chanting for financial reform. Hale's attorneys, crisp and cold, ushered their client in, shackled but smirking. His eyes flicked to Natalie, soulless calculation, and then to me, narrowing. I felt no chill. Truth had armored me. Judge Ospina, silver-haired and stern, heard both sides. When Hale's lawyer pled heart arrhythmia, the judge reviewed medical notes. Mild atrial flutter, managed by medication. Ospina's gaze sharpened. Millions at stake, defendants elsewhere vanish, bail denied. The gavel cracked. Cheers erupted outside the glass partitions. As marshals led Hale away, Natalie rose. You almost fooled me, she said, voice steady. Hale opened his mouth, whether to sneer or plead we never learned. A marshal urged him forward. His cuff chain rattled like the closing of a vault he would never reopen. Back at the penthouse that evening, sunlight slanted through windows now devoid of Hale's brash art. Movers had carted it as evidence. Space breathed again. Natalie brewed tea in an heirloom porcelain set long hidden in storage. Kept this safe, she said. Reminded me of you. We curled on the balcony sofa, facing a skyline gilded by sunset. She scrolled her phone. Messages from investors. They trust me more, not less. Hard truth beats shiny lies. A pause. Mom, can you stay a while? This place feels big. Emotion wavered in her words. Brittle yet hopeful. I squeezed her hand. I'll stay as long as needed, but you won't feel small again. You have a fortress now, made of transparency. Later, we visited Marcus's abandoned study. Natalie opened the safe with a code. Singh pulled off CCTV footage. Inside, a USB drive, cash bundles, a velvet box. She clicked open the box. My grandmother's locket, stolen the night I fled Marcus all those years ago. Tears welled. Natalie clasped it around my neck. He can't keep what belongs to us. We sifted through more. A thumb drive labeled Ledger 9. Singh later decrypted it. A list of investors Hale planned to target next. Natalie forwarded it to authorities with a note. Stop him wherever his network reaches. Overnight, raids unfolded in Miami and Zurich. The first quiet morning in months arrived a week later. No court filings, no urgent pings, just Natalie and me on the rooftop garden she'd once planted but never enjoyed. Potted herbs released fragrance under gentle wind. New zinnia seedlings poke through soil. Her promise to our seaside childhood. I used to chase success to fill a silence, she confessed, trimming basil. Now I think I'll grow things that feed. I smiled, breathing in the mint. Growth without greed tastes sweeter. Kat's final article went live. How a mother's knot cracked a $1 billion charade. It ended with Natalie's quote, "When money speaks louder than love, let truth raise its voice." Comments exploded with survivors saying the story pushed them to confront their own hails. That night, Natalie booked 2 tickets to Cape May. "We'll walk the shore, pick seashells," she said, eyes bright. She hesitated. "You'll come?" I touched the locket, resting warm against my heart. Wouldn't miss it. The city lights flickered below as we hugged, a long embrace stitching torn years. Somewhere in a federal cell, Marcus Hale faced decades of nights without penthouse glass or easy victims. Justice had closed that door. On Natalie's balcony, another door opened, one leading not to wealth or headlines, but to peaceful mornings steeped in tea and the quiet strength of a mother-daughter bond reforged in fire and impossible to steal again. Thunderheads loomed off Cape May just as the seagulls finished their dawn patrol. Natalie and I were ankle-deep in the Atlantic, shells clinking in our pockets, when a single lightning fork split the charcoal horizon. An omen, I joked, that life wasn't done sending plot twists. Natalie laughed, but her phone vibrated before the echo faded. One glance at the screen and her shoulders tensed. "It's the SEC," she said, reading the email aloud. A surprise summons. Regulators wanted her testimony before they unsealed a nationwide indictment list linked to Marcus's offshore lattice. Deadline? 48 hours. We both knew ignoring it meant risking everything she'd rebuilt. Storm wind flapped our jackets as we hiked back across salted sand. "I thought the criminal case was enough," she muttered, eyes on frothing surf. "Now a civil barrage, shareholder suits. When does cleanup end?" I slipped my arm through hers, and when every lie he told is stripped of profit, "You're the key witness. They need your flashlight." Back at the rental cottage, raindrops drummed the cedar roof while Natalie's legal team joined via video. Kat, streaming from a buzzing newsroom, already had the headline drafted, "Tech CEO to aid SEC in historic asset laundering probe." She urged speed. "Media will spin silence as complicity, own the narrative again." We packed before the kettle whistled. I tucked the locket inside Natalie's carry-on, a reminder that reclaimed things stay claimed. In the car, she stared at windshield wipers fighting the deluge. "I'm done letting storms chase me," she said. "Time to chase them back." The SEC's Manhattan field office felt colder than any courtroom. Fluorescent light, ticking wall clock. No room for sentiment. Natalie sat beneath an American flag, flanked by her counsel and a forensic accountant. She unspooled Hale's tactics. Deep fakes, ghost directors, honeyed promises. She named executives he'd courted, charities he'd siphoned, lawyers who'd rubber-stamped shell transfers for a taste of the wash. After 5 straight hours, the lead investigator slid a stack of frozen asset charts across the table. "Your cooperation, plus data you supplied, helped us claw back $1.8 billion so far," she said. Natalie exhaled like a diver breaking surface. "What about victims overseas?" The agent's answer, "Ongoing treaties," but Natalie's files shortened the road. Outside, press lines coiled around barriers. Natalie stepped to the microphones, rain misting her blazer. She spoke briefly, 5 sentences that would replay on every network. Fraud travels fast. Transparency must travel faster. Today is one more mile. No grandstanding, just steady resolve. That night we returned to the penthouse garden, now lush with basil and knee-high zinnias. City lights shimmered beyond glass balustrades. Natalie watered seedlings, silent until she said, "When this is over, I want to build something no one can launder. A foundation for financial literacy programs in high schools. Teens should recognize a Marcus before he learns their names." I smiled. "Put the headquarters in that spare conference room. I'll volunteer as chief coffee officer." She laughed, the carefree sound I hadn't heard since childhood. The next afternoon, a courier arrived with 2 envelopes, one from the SEC certifying Natalie as key whistleblower, eligibility for recovery awards, the other from a charity in Nairobi. Marcus had gutted. Inside, a handwritten note, "Your courage restored clinics that keep our daughters alive." Tears traced fresh lines on Natalie's cheeks. Every mile, she whispered, repeating her earlier words, "really does matter." Weeks later, at the scholarship banquet's 2nd annual gala, the ballroom lights dimmed for a surprise video. Faces from around the world, Kenyan nurses, Brazilian coders, retired veterans, thanked a daughter who turned betrayal into blueprints. The room rose in applause. Natalie took the stage, shimmering but unpolished, preferring sincerity over script. She ended with a pledge: 10% of her company's annual profit to fund the new literacy foundation. Investors applauded the strategy. Students cheered the promise. I stood at the back, hand over heart, locket warm against my skin. As guests drifted into night, Kat nudged me. From eviction stories to global stings, you ever picture this ending? I gazed at Natalie chatting with scholarship winners beneath crystal chandeliers. "It's not an ending," I said. "It's spring after the storm." The hotel's revolving door whooshed open. Reverend Harris entered, waving the latest headline. "Court rejects Hale appeal. Sentence 27 years. Closure inked in black print. Natalie read it, sighed, a release rather than a victory cry. She pocketed the paper, linked arms with me and Reverend Harris. "Home?" she asked. We nodded. Stepping onto the sidewalk, I realized the lightning bolt that split Cape May's sky had traveled full circle, grounding itself in courtroom verdicts, grassroots programs, and an unbroken mother-daughter bond. Storms will return. Life guarantees it. But Natalie now carried her own weather vane, and I, at last, carried peace. And somewhere in a cell far from city lights, the man who forged empires on fear faced a horizon he could no longer buy, manipulate, or charm, while the women he underestimated walked freely into tomorrow, pockets full of seashell memories and plans no thief could touch. 2 months after Marcus Hale's sentencing, spring draped Manhattan in soft greens and hopeful pinks. For the first time in years, I strolled Central Park without checking shadows for ghosts. Natalie walked beside me, phone tucked away as though the city had retuned its pulse to a gentler tempo. She stopped near Bethesda Fountain, the angel's wings glinting in morning light, and tilted her face to the sun. "I used to jog here at dawn," she said, thinking speed kept demons behind me. Now I realized they just waited at the finish line. I reached for her hand. Demons hate daylight and paperwork. We laughed, a crisp sound scattering pigeons. Back at the penthouse that afternoon, movers delivered crates labeled SJCF, the Seashell Justice and Civic Foundation. Natalie beamed. "Logo's a conch, colors sea glass blue." She'd converted Hale's claw-backed assets into seed money for free fraud defense clinics and high school finance labs. Kat agreed to chair the board. Reverend Harris became ethics advisor. Serena, freshly certified in cybersecurity, ran the hotline desks. While staff unpacked printers and motivational posters, Natalie showed me her latest safeguard. A transparent glass vault room holding every key document, charters, donor ledgers, staff contracts, visible but locked, symbol and practice in one. Anyone can request a viewing, she explained, pressing her palm to the biometric pad. The door hissed open, cool air carrying that new paper smell. Inside, a narrow pedestal displayed Mama's locket beneath LED lights. First donation, Natalie whispered. Proof that what's precious can be returned. I swallowed a lump, pride bright enough to sting. As twilight pooled between skyscrapers, Kat burst in waving her phone. Breaking. SEC just announced settlements to victims, $1.94 billion, and they're crediting your foundation for evidence. She spun, half reporter, half gleeful child. Natalie's eyes widened. We crossed 2 billion? Kat nodded. Turns out sunlight travels faster than laundered money. Celebration plans paused when Singh called from the data forensics bunker. Heads up, he said on speaker. A phishing ring is spoofing the foundation's email. They're targeting elder donors. Natalie cursed softly. Demons mutate. Within minutes, the war room vibe returned. Serena traced the spoof server to a warehouse in Newark. Natalie drafted an alert blast to every subscriber. If you receive a message asking for Bitcoin, it is not us. Singh forwarded IP logs to Detective Alvarez, who promised a raid before sunrise. I brewed chicory coffee in the quiet kitchen while the younger crew hammered keyboards. Memories surfaced. Nights long ago when Marcus whispered about quick flips, while I pretended the worry knot in my gut was indigestion. How different this kitchen felt. No secrets, only vigilance. Just past midnight, the team slumped into couches, crisis contained. Natalie set 2 mugs on the balcony rail and joined me. Wind rustled zinnias now shoulder high. City lights shimmered like distant constellations. Tired? I asked. She sighed. Yes, but not weary. She gestured across Manhattan. This skyline used to feel like a ledger I had to balance. Profit, prestige, perception. Now it's just home. She turned, seriousness settling. Mom, I filed paperwork to add you to the Foundation's advisory council if you want it. I chuckled. What does an ex-bookkeeper bring to a skyscraper nonprofit? Wisdom that smells like chicory, she said, bumping my shoulder, and a habit of knocking on doors that need opening. I nodded, warmth blossoming. Then I accept. But my first decree, mandatory vacation day once a quarter, zinnia maintenance counts as PTO. Deal struck, we toasted with steaming mugs. In the hush, Natalie asked a question that had hovered unseen. Do you ever regret leaving all those years ago? The locket brushed my collarbone as I turned. Regret the fear? Yes. Regret surviving? Never. Survival is the bridge that brought me back to you. She blinked away tears, gaze drifting to the conch logo boxes. Survival built this. Phone buzz. Kat's message flashed. Newark server seized, arrests made, demons 0. Daylight 1. Natalie laughed, a melody unmarred by fear. She sent back a seashell emoji. Wind shifted, carrying faint strains of saxophone from a rooftop bar blocks away. A lullaby for a city that never truly sleeps but sometimes pauses to breathe. We stayed until the mug steam thinned. Speaking of mundane things, herb ratios for pesto, whether to rescue a stray cat that kept visiting the garden. Finally, Natalie yawned. Board meeting at 9. We headed inside. She paused at the glass vault, pressed her palm again. LEDs illuminated the locket. For a heartbeat, I saw reflections. Hers tall and strong, mine smaller but steady, both framed by transparent walls that dared any future thief to try. The vault clicked shut, security bolts slid home with a satisfying clunk, an epilogue in metal. We turned off lights, leaving the skyline to pulse beyond massive windows like a heartbeat synced with our own. Demons would evolve, storms would gather, but we had charts now, legal, digital, moral, and we had each other, mother and daughter, threaded together by tragedy, tempered by truth, pointing their compass toward horizons no grifter could darken again. Tomorrow, the Foundation's phone lines would ring and class bell schedules would buzz, spreadsheets would fill, reporters would call. But tonight, the quiet claimed its due, and two women finally slept in a world they'd wrestled word by word back into honesty,